Hello, and welcome back to our lecture on new imperialism. I thought one of the best ways that I could continue to talk about the effects of new imperialism from an African perspective is to really look at some of the women. As we discussed in the first week of the class, African women have played a critical role in resisting European influence since Europeans started to arrive in the 15th century. I want to spend a few minutes again just highlighting some of this. On In our first module, I provided this link, and as you can see, it's not necessarily even scholarly. It seems like a collection of information on family trees, but it has an incredible account of African women healers, leaders, and those who are often neglected in history. There are so many women that we could focus on who are leading examples of resistance against Europeans and new and imperialism. But let's just look at a few to demonstrate this across the continent. So, as a result, obviously, of imperialism in Africa, and as Europeans are taking over, women are some of the essential leaders. And this is often quite shocking to Europeans because they weren't expecting this, as they are imposing their own ideas about gender on African civilizations. This is an example of a woman who's featured in that first website. But she is a queen, Caparigi, of a female warrior who fought against the British and the Germans in what is now Namibia. And I just, again, wanted to show how this type of information really challenges and redirects our focus. Now, we don't have her exact photograph. There are some that are believed to be her. Well, we should also remember just the ways that these digital formats and platforms are allowing new forms of historical knowledge to be understood. Now I'm getting slow. Here we go. These are some of the known photographs that we have. And as you can see, obviously, right, they are dressed, she is dressed in her traditional garb, traditional headrest, and these certainly would demonstrate power. Oh, wow. Sorry, folks. Nonetheless, we can get a sense of women warriors, and that women are providing not only the leadership and the guidance, but also physical battles out on the battlefield against the European invaders. Here's another example of a woman leader from who are known as the Amazons. We also talked about them at the beginning of the class, from Nigeria. And although there is one or a couple of photographs, this is her mostly depicted in other artistic representations. But she is a leader of the Dahomey Amazons. In 1851, she led an all-female army of nearly 6,000 warriors against the Egba fortresses to obtain slaves for Europeans. So this is also an example of the continuation of the slave trade going on well into the 19th century, and just the specific examples of women leadership. Here's another example of an Asante woman, which is, of course, on West Africa, West African coast, who was a queen at the beginning of the 20th century. She is going to lead an armed, as you can see her with her weapon, resistance movements against the British. In 1896, the Asante people began to rebel against the British in their land along the Gold Coast. The British captured and exiled the king of the Ashanti, who was a powerful leader. They removed the king and other Ashanti leaders to the Seychelles Islands in order to acquire and press and suppress the rebellion. They did not, however, think about the women leaders. Her leadership and passion led to her role as commander in chief of the Ashanti army. In turn, the Anglo Ashanti Wars also took place for years, beginning on March 28th, 1900. And she is going to lead this rebellion for nearly 20 years. And again, is an example of powerful women, African women, leading resistance movements against Europeans. We also have this example from Zimbabwe of another woman, Nahanda, who was considered a spiritual medium of the Zazuro Shona people. As a woman, she is also going to be in charge in one of the largest revolts against basically the diamond industry that is there taking over. Her name becomes very much linked to nationalism and independence in Zimbabwe, which will not become independent well until the 20th century, the late 20th century. After the rebellion, she's going to be captured. She's charged with murder. She's found guilty under eyewitnesses' claim that she ordered the assassination of a British general, and she's hung in 1898. But today there are a number of things very much related to her. She is given the title Mumba, or grandmother, in terms of contemporary Zimbabwe. We in the United States learn very, very little about the role that African women have played in directing independence movements, in trying to retain and remain independent and free from European rule. And this is one of the great aspects of this course at this university, is to really highlight the incredible role of Black women. I encourage you to learn more about these women, and not only in this time period, but we will continue to really look at the contributions of African women in the era of decolonization and into the late 20th century.